Every man knows tobacco. It's a plant which becomes one of the materials which makes a cigarette. The nicotine which is contained in the tobacco is the main ingredient which is needed to make a cigarette. Moreover, this substance is able to make you addicted if it enters your body. That's why a cigarette company can make tons of bucks when they sell products of cigarette. On the other hand, there are also some people who plant the tobacco just for their individual consumption. So, if you want to know about how to make tobacco grow faster, this may be very useful for you now and in the future. As we know, there is nothing which can match the pleasure of smoking a cigarette in the garden while enjoying the afternoon vibe. Moreover, you're enjoying the afternoon vibe with a cup of coffee accompanies you. That's how actually you should end up your day with. However, when you realize that buying cigarettes can waste your money, there is a way that you can try to save your money. Here, you have to roll your own cigarettes. Yup, it's normal because you can even grow tobacco in your yard or your garden. Even though planting tobacco makes some efforts, what makes it cool when you smoke a cigarette from your own tobacco plants? What is the best soil to plant tobacco? When we talk about how to plant tobacco in our land, there are some things that you should know before starting it. Here, you have to check the climate and soil conditions in the area which you want to plant. Even though this plant can grow in every type of soil, the best soil which will make your tobacco grow as well is the soil which can drain well. Not only that, the quality of tobacco is also affected by the soil conditions as well. For example, if the land which you're going to plant tobacco has lighter soils, the tobacco which grows will have a lighter color of tobacco. If the land has darker soils, the tobacco will be darker as well. Again, the best tobacco is produced from well-drained soils. However, the climate where you want to plant tobacco also affects the quality. Here, you have to choose the area which is warm and dry for the best results. Why? Because if the land which you're going to choose is an area which has a high rainfall density, the tobacco will be flaky and thin. In the specific condition, the best temperature which can produce fine tobacco is around 20 to 30 degrees of Celsius. In addition, tobacco is a plant which is fun to plant. How to plant tobacco? Before planting tobacco, you have to know that the tobacco seeds are difficult to find. Why? Because the tobacco seeds are only sold in the particular area. So, if you really want to plant tobacco, you have to buy the tobacco seeds in the plantation. After you have tobacco seeds, now it's the time to plant them. Here, you have to spread the tobacco seeds in sterile small pots. The best pot you have to choose is pots which have holes in the bottom. Then, you only need to water your tobacco plants sufficiently. The time which is needed is around 4 to 6 weeks until the seeds are grown. In the seed phase, it's better for you to check the condition of your tobacco seeds. You can give them compost and other nutrients in order to make the seeds become healthy. You can buy compost and nutrients in the gardening store near your house. Based on the fact that this kind of plant has a small seed, you have to make sure that you don't sprinkle the seeds too thickly. This should be done to avoid the seeds become overcrowded when they start growing. Besides, you're suggested to plant the tobacco in indoor areas. If you have no greenhouse in your home, you have to check the temperature at around 75 to 80 degrees of Fahrenheit. Not only that, when you plant tobacco seeds, you have to make sure that the seeds are not covered with soil. Here, the tobacco seeds also need the light in the process of germination. If you cover the tobacco seeds with soil, there is a possibility that the time which is taken to germinate becomes longer. The worst is, it It can even prevent the process of germination. In the normal time, the seeds will start germinating in around 7 to 10 days. In the watering process, you have to make sure that the soil should remain to be moist. Besides, you have to water the tobacco seeds carefully. Here, the strong force of water usually uproots the seeds. The worst is, it can cause your tobacco seeds dead. Because the pots which you utilize have holes in the bottom, you can water the tobacco seeds from the bottom. How? You can put the pots in a tray, which is already filled with water. Here, you have to let the soils absorb the water in the tray. In addition, this way can make the tobacco seeds are not wet, which means the result will be better when they are already grown. Similar with other plants, the growing tobacco seeds also have to be placed in a larger place. After your tobacco seeds are 3 weeks old, you can transplant them into a larger container. There is an easy way to check whether your tobacco seeds grow in the right size or not. Here, if you can pinch them easily, it means that your tobacco seeds are ready for the transplantation process. If you can pinch them, you need to give them more time to continue the germination process until they get the proper size. On the other hand, you can easily transplant the tobacco plants from the seedling pot in a larger container with bare root or without soil. However, the bad thing which you can get is a transplant shock. Here, the leaves of your tobacco plants can become wilted yellow. So, to avoid that thing happens, you have to make sure that the soils in the larger container have same conditions with the seedling pots. If you face this kind of problem, the time which will be taken to the normal condition is around a week. In addition, this thing is a normal problem when you grow your own tobacco. After your tobacco plants are placed in a larger container, you have to water them with fertilizer like Miracle Glow. Besides, you can also utilize fertilizer from fish or seaweed emulsion. The time which will be taken in this phase is around 3 to 4 weeks if you feed them with these solutions regularly. If you find a problem like your tobacco plants become yellow or stunted, you need to check about how much the dose which you give to your tobacco plants. Sometimes, the other problems you face if the fertilizer is not suitable for your plants are the burned roots or overgrown. When your tobacco plants have reached 3 to 4 weeks, you have to prepare your garden as the next place which is used to plant your tobacco. As been described before, the soils which in your garden must be well drained and exposed to the sun. Here, if your tobacco plants are lack of light, there is a possibility that your plants will have thin leaves and even experience poor growth. Besides, it's better for you to check the pH levels of the soils. You have to know that tobacco plants also need soils which have moderately acidic soil. Why? Because they can't flourish in the soils which have a high pH level. The best pH level which you should control is at 5.8 and not exceed 6.5 of pH level. The certain problems which happens when your tobacco plants lives in the soils which have a high pH level is poor growth and growth disorders. Again, you have to make sure that the soils are free of nematodes and diseases. The nematodes are parasitic worms which often damage the tobacco plants. Here, the nematodes feed on your tobacco plants rapidly. The worst thing that you can get when your tobacco plants are infested with this kind of parasitic worm is, they are difficult to eliminate. So, before placing your tobacco plants to your garden, we suggest you to make sure that the soils are free of nematodes. After preparing the garden, now you have to transfer your tobacco plants to this area. Before it, you have to check whether your plants reach the right length. Here, the standard length which is usually chosen is around 6 to 8 inches of 15 to 20 centimeters. Besides, as been described before, you have to make sure that the climate is in the right condition. To plant your tobacco plants in the garden, you have to give a gap between 2 to 3 feet for each plant in a row. How to care the tobacco plants? This is a thing that you should do it carefully. You have to water your tobacco plants regularly in the evening. You have to make sure that the water won't make the soils become soggy. If the land which you choose is an area which is over dry, it's better for you to make an irrigation system. Besides, if you think that the rain density has given enough water to your plants, you don't need to water them anymore. Here, the tobacco plants have a capability to collect water in the soils optimally. So, you don't have to think to water them when the rain comes. For the nutrients which should be given, you need to choose the fertilizers which have low chlorine and contain nitrogen as well. If you want to get an alternative way, you can also utilize fertilizers which are usually used to fertilize potatoes, tomatoes, or peppers. As been described before, you have to make sure that you give the right amount of fertilizer in order to avoid the problems with the growth. Then, you have to fertilize your tobacco plants in several times. When your plants begin to flower, you have to give fertilizers to them anymore. Besides, you have to top your tobacco plants when they begin to flower. Here, this process will make the leaves on the higher level become thicker and larger. You can do this process by cutting the new leaves or buds on the top. Not only that, this process can also help your tobacco plants get more nutrients. On the other hand, if you find that there are other axillary buds which develop on the leaves, you can remove it as well. Here, you only need to remove it with your hand. To prevent the pests, you can spray your tobacco plants with pesticides. The common pests which usually attack your plants are hornworms, budworms, and pathogens. If you haven't known before, tobacco is the subject which can be considered as a delicious prey by bugs. So, if you want to protect your tobacco plants from pests or bugs, the best thing to do is to utilize pesticides. If the pests or bugs are stubborn, you can use specific pesticides like Prowl, Nemaker, or Admire. Again, it's better for you to choose pesticides which are suitable for the condition of your plants. Is there any information about the tobacco plants? If you're concerned about how to make tobacco grow faster, you do the things above carefully. Here, the point is, your tobacco plants must get enough light, live in the moist and sterile soils, and free of pests or weeds. Not only that, based on the fact that tobacco plant is heavy feeder, which means it will absorb the nutrients in the soil in around 2 years. You're suggested to plant the tobacco plant in different locations, if you want to plant it again. Here, the time which is taken to make the soils become normal is around a year.